It is Thursday, which means we have the latest jobs numbers, and they're not good. When we add the jobs lost in the last week, or last week, I guess I would say, that puts the total number of jobs lost during the 7 weeks of what we would, I guess, call the coronavirus quarantines at 33.5 million jobs. Last week, the latest numbers, about 3.2 million more people lost their jobs and filed for unemployment. Now, if you are looking at these numbers and you are determined to find some okay news or some sign of it's not as bad as it could be, what you could say, and you would be right to say it, is that each week, fewer people are losing their jobs. We had more than 6 million people lose their jobs in the last week of March, the first week of April. Only about half of that number each week over the last couple of weeks have lost their jobs in the 3 million job range. But in total, these are unconscionable numbers. Now, to give you a little bit of context, before this all started, so 7 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, the US workforce was believed to be about 158 million people. 158 million people were formally in the workforce in the United States before this all started. So when you look at 33.5 million jobs, that is 21% of the labor force of the United States that has lost their jobs, not in a year, which would be a tragedy, in 7 weeks. In 7 weeks. If 3 months ago somebody had said, in the next 3 months, 1 out of 5 Americans who is working is going to lose their job. Number one, no one would have believed it. But if you forced their hand to say, how do you think the stock market would be doing? How do you think all these different, they would say, well, it would be absolute, complete devastation. But nobody would have believed that that is how bad things could possibly get in such a short period of time. But we are there. Now, previously, before this phase, before coronavirus, the largest 1 week job loss, new unemployment claims, was somewhere in the 600,000 range, maybe close to 700,000. We have done 5 to 10 times those numbers, not in total during coronavirus, each week during the last 7 weeks. And again, the total number is now 33.5 million jobs lost. Now, there are people who are seeing these numbers and they're in the camp of open it all right now, no matter what, to save the economy, right? They're in that camp. And those folks see these numbers and they say, here's the evidence. Here's the evidence that we must reopen everything right now, regardless of the human cost. And by the way, the human cost is really big anyway with things shut down, which is true. And that tells us just how contagious coronavirus is. That's a very short-sighted perspective. It's not a good idea, but I do believe that there are things that we can glean from these numbers that should inform what should have been done and also how things should be handled going forward. First of all, even economies that appear to be doing well, Trump has called the economy up until 7 weeks ago the best economy in the history of any country ever. I don't call it that, but there's no doubt that what we had up until 7 weeks ago was an economy that, by the normal metrics we use, unemployment, inflation, consumer confidence, stock market, all of those measures, it was doing well. It was an economy that was doing well. But what we learned is even those economies are extremely fragile. Even those economies can, on the drop of a dime, make a 180-degree turn. This fragility is inherent to our economy, in part because of the marginal nature of a lot of the work in the economy, in part because of the low savings rate, which is fueled by stagnant wages over a long period of time. Dramatic inequality also gives you averages that seem okay, even when a lot of individuals are in a very precarious financial state. The just-in-time nature of many of our industries and supply chains, all of these things should confirm to us that even when the economy looks pretty good by the standard metrics, it's a very fragile economy that we have. That's part of the system. That's a feature of it, not a bug. Number two, what we also need to think about is, if you look at other countries right now, if you look at Italy, France, Spain, a lot of these hubs of cases, South Korea, of course, they are all on the dramatic decline. They are doing really, really well, while we are still having 2,500 deaths a day. And that leads me to have to talk about Donald Trump's failure here. Now, I'm not going to do this completely irrational thing where I could sit here and tell you Trump obviously should have shut everything down on February 20th when we had 15 cases. Trump was very dumb and wrong to say on February, around, late February, we have 15 cases and it'll soon be zero. That was a dumb thing to say. No president is going to shut down a country with 15 cases. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's the logical thing that should have been done at the time. But don't look at February 20th. Look at March 5th. Look at March 10th. Okay. On March 5th, we had 221 cases here in the United States. On March 5th, China had 80,000 cases, proving that this could go very, very big. But importantly, Italy had 4,000 cases on March 5th. So on March 5th, we knew 15 cases weren't going to zero. We went to 221. We knew that a country could have close to 100,000 cases. And we knew that another country could have the disease seeded and already have 4,000 cases. That's what we knew from Italy. So March 5th would not have been a crazy time to say, hey, governors, all 50 of you, we need to stay at home starting now. If we had done that on March 5th, I'm not saying February 20th, but if we had done it on March 5th, we would now have done 60 days of it, and we would have had economic impacts similar to what we've had, but we would be in very good shape right now compared to where we are. By mid-March, when the sporadic stay-at-home orders started in some states but not others, the U.S. had already been seeded with close to 4,000 cases of coronavirus. It was too late then to really stop the spread. It was especially not going to happen when only some states started stay-at-home orders in the middle of March. So don't fall for the Trumpist talking point that there were no cases in February, and so it would have been crazy to shut it down then. They are right. I don't know of any president that with 15 cases would have demanded or asked 50 governors to shut things down. But by early March, March 5, March 7, look at the numbers for yourselves. We had the data that we needed to take it seriously, and Trump did not at that point in time. He'll brag he shut down travel from China, but clearly at that point it had gone outside of China to a significant degree. And we now have 33 million jobs lost. But because of this rolling patchwork of shutdowns in some states and not in others, we see some states improving, some worsening. We still have 2,500 deaths a day. And FEMA and the CDC believe it is possible that by June 1st, we will actually be up to 3,000 deaths every single day. It's been mishandled. Let's be accurate in our criticism of how it's been mishandled, but it has been dramatically mishandled. And not only are we seeing a human toll, we are also seeing an optional economic toll. We were going to have an economic impact, but we could have, grinned and bared it for 60 days starting March 5th, and we would be in much better shape right now.